Welcome to another opportunity to find out how to have a better marriage. Today, I'm going to be talking about things that will help you to have a better marriage, but also to have better relationships. And we're going to dig into brain science. It's one of the things that I discovered as God led me that actually changed my marriage and changed it in such a powerful and dramatic way that I want to share that with you today. I want you to know what I discovered. And one of the things that I did discover was that brain scientists tell us and give us great wisdom on how God designed our brains to work in such a way that the experiences that we have that are they're categorized, they're actually held together in files in our brain. Now, you may look at brain science and wonder, what is he talking about? Well, I'm talking about how God designed our brain, and you may also realize that there's a left side and a right side to our brains. And pop psychology has said that, men are more logical, women are more feeling. I'm going to go a little deeper than that today, and it's going to really, really help you. And it's going to be new information for many of you. For most of you, I believe it'll be new information. So the first thing that I want you to know, however, before we get started and do a deep dive into brain science and brain science really tells us why we do what we do. And so I need to tell you about the book that is the key. The key is, for this book, the key is to know how to get emotionally healed. This book is available on Amazon, and it is the foundation of what I'm going to be sharing with you today. What I'm going to be sharing with you today is so important. You may want to listen to it again, and you can listen to it again on my YouTube channel, which is Pastor Frank Lewis, and there's a playlist. And I've done a number of shows or programs that are going to help you with your marriage. The other thing I want you to know is that I have a website called relationshipsrevealed.org. This is the first in a series of books that I'm doing that are all about relationships. When you go to relationshipsrevealed.org, you're going to have an opportunity to find out about the books that are coming, but you're also going to have an opportunity to press the button and ask for help. If you want help, if you need any help at all, then press the button, say want help, fill in the information. If you can give me your phone number, I've really only asked for your email, I believe, but if you can give me your phone number, I can get back to you more quickly. The other thing is, if you want to learn more, I'll get back to you, send you to another website which has other information on it. The main thing is that if you want to go to the relationshipsrevealed.org, you can scroll down to the point where you can actually get you're linked right to Amazon, so you can buy the book on Amazon. Now, today we're going to look at brain science. Now, I believe that brain science and the understanding of how God designed our brains is really the missing link to understanding why we do what we do. And we don't understand why we do what we do because we don't understand how God designed our brains. And so we're going to look deeply into that today, or more deeply into it. Then next week we're going to finish that up. But it's going to be helpful to you. It's going to be really helpful. First thing is we know there's a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere. Now, I already said what pop psychologists say, men are from Mars and women are from Venus, but that's a different subject, if you will. But I'm going to go deeper, and I'm going to tell you the left hemisphere is really designed by God to come up with explanations, interpretations, all assumptions and presumptions, okay? Now, why that's important is because it really is coming from the explanation. The explanations come whenever we have something happen that we experience. Every time we experience anything, first of all, it's totally stored in our right side of our brain. You can look at it and think of it as in files. But what happens is that it's stored in files, and those files are all of everything that's ever happened to us are in the right side of our brain. Second part is that there's explanations being made for every single thing that's happened to us. Now, here's what brain scientists and behavioral scientists tell us, that whenever we experience anything that is painful, what happens is that we end up with a more of a deeper intensity in our brain. In other words, that memory, a painful memory, has more emotion attached to it, and so we remember it longer. It's in a special file, and it really comes down to a way to look at this. First way to look at this is with pain and pleasure. The way that we the way our brains work is that if we have experienced anything and it brought pleasure, the judgment that comes from our left side brain says that's good. If we experience anything that brings pain, that's not good. So let's say something happens, our brain actually happens, we experience something and we start to say, let's say we start to feel pain. What happens is that our brain, the right side of the brain, will look through files to see if there's anything that is remotely similar to what we're experiencing in the present that we experienced in the past. And if there is, then what's going to happen is that that happened to us, that experience is going to come into our brain with all the emotion attached to it of the pain. And so that's going to be not so good. What that does, however, God designed that so that we would move away from things that would hurt us or be painful so we could survive. And the other side of it is that if there's something that's very joyful or it makes us happy, we're going to go towards that. And God wants us to go to that because joy is what brain scientists even say. We know the joy of the Lord is our strength, but what brain scientists even tell us is that that our brains run on joy. Scientists that don't know God tell us our brains run on joy. And we know that God created us for relationships. I've told you that many weeks ago, and that we're still on that subject. God created us for relationships because they bring us joy. And if we're not in relationship, we're in pain, and I talked about that before. So what we've got to find out is why we do what we do. Because why we do what we do affects all of our marriage relationships, it affects all of our relationships, but it affects our marriage and in marriages in a huge way. And the reason it is because if there is something that let me talk about my situation. My wife would say things to me, and she would say things to me that I felt pain about. What happened is that I felt, and you may feel the same thing in your marriage. You may feel the same thing in other relationships. And that is that she was doing it on purpose. I thought she was bringing me pain on purpose because what happened is she would say something and I would feel pain. And so it never dawned on me that the pain that I felt was because of something that was inside of me. That never crossed my mind until we actually were married for 1.5 years, And I would get angry so fast when she said certain things. I would yell, I would even rage. She would shut down and go to bed for 2 weeks, and then we'd start this dance all over again. Well, finally, she was fed up, and she left for 8 months. I cried out to God, and God put me in a place where I needed to find out about brain science. I needed to find out how God wired our brains, because then I could find out what the real problem was. Well, I didn't know what the real problem was. You don't know what the real problem is in your marriage and in your relationships. Well, I'm going to tell you. Write these notes down. I'm going to tell you that the problem is that when she would do certain things or say certain things, that was remotely similar to what my father did when I was a child. It was very painful, and so it came forward in nanoseconds. Get that? The reason I want to emphasize that, in nanoseconds. That's a billionth of a second, people. Nanoseconds. So I could not differentiate. I could not tell the difference between what she said, what I said, and what she said, and all this pain. I just couldn't do it. Well, what I found out through brain science is that all of the pain that was attached to the original event comes into my mind, and it actually is what I feel, what I felt then is what I feel now. Now, here's the problem, is that when I feel that intense emotional pain, it will actually shut down the left side of my brain, actually shut it down. And the reason is because brain scientists tell us is that the reason the left side shuts down is to conserve energy, because I'm going to go into fight, flight, or freeze. In other words, I'm going to try to fight my way out of it. I'm going to try to leave the scene like a jelly bean, so to speak, and I'm going to freeze and just hope for the best. Well, my wife would shut down. She would freeze, she would shut down, go to bed. Well, that wasn't going to work in our marriage. And so I had to find out some new things, and I cried out to God. Now, see, the interesting thing is I had been through deliverance, and found out that, through brain science understanding, and I believe it's the missing link for really understanding why we do what we do. So I've been through deliverance. That didn't, that helped, but it didn't. You can't cast out the things that were that I was believing, because I had believed from a child that I was being treated in such a way as I felt not valuable, not important, and not worthy. So these painful feelings came into my brain and shut it down. Well, I then had a problem because I felt so much pain. And that's happening to you. That happens to all human beings. And what happens is that brain scientists tell us that it happens in nanoseconds, a billionth of a second. Well, that's that fast. I mean, it's even faster. So I was sure that my wife was causing me the problem. But here's what I discovered. When I dug into it, I discovered that what was really happening was inside of me. My wife actually was not the problem. I'm sure there's people that have gotten divorces thinking their husband was the problem or their wife was the problem. I'm sure of it. Because Satan is not a fool. He reinforces this kind of behavior. That my wife left me for eight months. We weren't going to get a divorce because we had made a covenant we're not going to get a divorce. But we were in trouble. We were really in trouble. So here's what brain scientists tell us. They tell us that it's inside of me what I believe is actually causing me, what I experienced is actually causing me to have this emotional shutdown of the left side of my brain and me go to anger. I went to anger and rage. Other people shut down, as I said, and some people run away. Well, that is problems for marriage. That's going to cause very, very serious problems for marriage. I mean, that's extremely difficult. And so we have to know that God does not want us with unresolved emotional pain. Remember, you may not have remembered, but let me tell you, you can look it up on the playlist on YouTube, Pastor Frank Lewis on YouTube. Look at the playlist, and you'll find that unresolved emotional pain is at the root of marriage problems, for sure, and all relationship problems in truth. And I mean that. So God designed our brain so that we will not live in unresolved emotional pain. Why? Because I now knew that the problem was inside of me, so I began to go to God, and I'm going to share that with you in a couple of weeks, what God showed me, how this unresolved emotional pain could be dealt with. And so it is critical. Now, I will tell you this, and this is probably happening to you. I did not know, because everything that happened to me is stored in files that are below my conscious thought. Some people call it the subconscious. Below conscious thought. If it's below conscious thought, I have no understanding of the fact that there's stored files with emotions attached in those files, the way to think of it, and they are going to come blasting into my brain when I experience something that's remotely similar. Why would God do that? Why would God design our brain to work that way, to function that way? The reason he did is he didn't want us having unresolved emotional pain affecting every area of our life. Because unresolved emotional pain causes us to be not the people he created us to be. So he wants us dealing with emotional pain, unresolved emotional pain. The thing that's so amazing about this is that if you don't know what I'm telling you, you're going to hit what I described with my wife was landmines. I didn't know they existed. I didn't know this existed in me. I had no idea this existed, so I believed she was the problem. I believed that my boss at the job was the problem. I believed that my kids were the problem. No, it was all inside of me, so my wife was actually my gift. And your spouse could be your gift, and probably is, because we marry people that have the same kind of issues as our father or mother, and depending on husband or wife. You know, some people say there's more people when we get married because we bring in father and mother issues, we bring in our issues. So that's a lot to handle in a marriage. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about what happens when we hit landmines. Because we've got to know that the real reason why my life may not be working, your life is probably not working. My life's great now because I understand all this. I've got it. I understand it. But the main thing is your life can be great too when you understand that unresolved emotional pain needs to be known and then healed. If you're going to have a great marriage, unresolved emotional pain needs to be known and then healed. Otherwise, you won't. It just will not happen. So God designed our brains so that we can end up with knowing that we have a problem. Houston, we got a problem. And the problem is, the problem is I have experienced pain from my childhood, and it's in files, or I've carried it with me, and I don't even know that has happened. I don't know where those files are. The only way I can know where those files are is for me to have something happen to me in the present that is remotely similar to what happened in the past. That, my friends, is huge. Write that down, okay? Because this is going to change every part of your marriage. It's going to change every part of every relationship you have. It is really valuable information. Now, I have found that when I know that my brain is shutting down, when I know that my brain is shutting down, I can actually ask for help from God to help me so my brain doesn't shut down as quickly as it has before I knew this information. You could do the same thing. It's very, very important to get God helping you. I know you may not have trust in God, but if you'll just say, God, help, that'll do. He'll help you, and it'll really allow your brain not to end up shutting down the way that it could, and you won't go to fight, flight, or freeze and cause a rupture in your marriage. Because you don't want to have ongoing marriage problems that you don't even know why you do what you do. You want to have knowledge, because the Bible says, Hosea 4:6, my people perish for a lack of knowledge. I'm giving you knowledge today that's going to help you in every area of your life, but you're going to know that you have unresolved emotional pain. And when you have unresolved emotional pain, you're going to not have the abundant life. Jesus said that you will not have, Satan came to kill, steal, and destroy. I came to give you life and life more abundantly. Well, where is this abundant life? For you, for the people that are Christians that accepted Jesus Christ as Lord. If you haven't accepted Jesus Christ as Lord, there's not going to be an abundant life. But because you're going to have unresolved emotional pain, and you're not going to know how to be able to be healed, because being healed, you have to have a experience with God. You have to accept Jesus Christ as Lord to be healed emotionally. Now, you can go to a psychologist, but that's really just going to go round and round the mountain. You can get deliverance. That's going to help, but that's not going to be, the answer. You can try behavior modification. I tried that. But really what's going to happen is you're going to have to get into the family of God by accepting Jesus Christ as Lord, get into the family of God, and then ask God to help you to do what? When you start to trigger, or when you've triggered, just realize it's inside of you. And whoever's triggered you is a gift. And you need to deal with unresolved emotional pain. And so that is the truth. That's the truth. You really need to accept the reality of what brain scientists tell us and how God designed our brain is that it's inside of us. And the person who triggered us is truly a gift from God, because God doesn't want us living in unresolved emotional pain, because it affects every area of our life, and it puts us in a position where we're really not the people God created us to be. So we can't do what God created us to do. And that's why Satan uses pain, as I talked about weeks ago. Satan uses pain to get us to not be the people God created us to be. Well, we're now into the section into a place where I'm setting the foundation for how do we resolve emotional pain? How do we end up becoming more and more the people God created us to be. And part of that is going to be, a very big part of it's going to be that we begin to resolve emotional pain. Another part of it is that we are going to learn as we start to be able to get some space between the trigger, between what was remotely similar and our reaction to it, our emotional upset. We're going to actually be able to have space as we get more and more unresolved pain dealt with. So today we've started. Next week we're going to be talking about how Satan actually set us up because Adam and Eve disobeyed God. And so it's going to be a very, very important program next week. We're going to talk about how we all human beings have the gift that Adam and Eve left us, which is the knowledge of good and evil, and how that knowledge of good and evil actually causes us to not be able to be the people that God created us to be. So you want to come next week, look at it on YouTube, and when it's finally up there. And but I'm going to talk to you about what happens with Satan doing what he did in the garden. I want you to know that I really care about you. I want you to have a great marriage. I want you to have great relationships. And the only way you're going to do that is to be able to know that God has a plan for getting you free from unresolved emotional pain. God is good. He's good all the time. He's got a great plan. And next week I'm going to talk about another part of what we have to do in order to get emotionally healed. Because you're not going to have a great marriage or great relationships with your kids or in work or anything else until you get healed emotionally. And that's why I'm doing this. That's why I wrote this book. You can get it on Amazon. That is why God called me to do this, and I love you and want you to have a great life.